Hello everyone, Mr. Price here, continuing our read aloud. We last left off with Chapter 7 of The Watsons Go to Birmingham, 1963. And in Part 1, Byron had returned home with having some, you know, some new hairstyle that he had been told by his parents not to get. As you can imagine, his mom was very upset, and she told him, to go upstairs and wait in his room until Dad got home. And we left off with Dad having gotten home and Byron being called right in to speak to him. And Kenny came by and tried to kind of razz by a little bit. And Byron punched him in the arm and made him kind of start crying to himself. And it's I think we ended by saying that Joey sat on the step next to me with tears jumping out of her eyes too. So we'll continue right from there. Joey sat on the step next to me with tears jumping out of her eyes too. When Byron walked into the living room, Mama said, "Mr. Watson, I'd like to introduce you to your long-lost son from Mexico City, Senor Byroncito Watson." Joey made me quit sobbing so we could see what Dad was going to do, but for the longest time there were no sounds coming from the living room. We looked at each other. Finally, the chair whooshed as Mama got off of Dad's lap, then whooshed again as Dad stood up. After a long time, Dad said, uh. Then, "Well, son, what can I say? It's pretty much permanent, isn't it?" Dad's voice was real calm, and that was scarier than if he'd been yelling. "Yes, Dad. Yes, Dad. So there's nothing that I can really do, is there?" "I don't think so, Dad." "You don't think so, Dad? Well, judging by the condition of your hair, I wouldn't say thinking is one of your strong suits, is it?" Byron mumbled something. Wow, he must have really felt like he didn't have anything to lose, 'cause Mama and Dad just didn't tolerate mumbling. Dad's voice shifted. "Excuse me?" I said, "No, Dad. No, Dad." Joey started boo-hooing again. Whenever Dad repeated everything you said like this, some real big trouble was gonna follow. Maybe there is something that can be done about this after all. Suddenly, Dad and Byron were in the doorway leading upstairs. Dad looked surprised to see me and Joey sitting there. He smiled at us. "Hi, Kenneth. Hi, Pumpkin. Why are you two crying?" I could just point to my ear, but Joey said, "Oh, Daddy, please, what are you going to do?" "Don't worry, Joe. Everything's okay. You just wait down here." Dad and Byron disappeared into the bathroom and the door locked behind them. Dad hadn't told me to wait downstairs, so I ran up and stood at the bathroom door peeking through the keyhole. Someone had stuffed some toilet paper in the hole, though, so I had to drop to the floor and peek under the door to see what was going on. From the way Dad and By's feet were standing, I could tell that By was sitting on the toilet and Dad was standing at the sink. Dad was rumbling around the medicine cabinet. I could hear By sniff a couple of times, then Dad started whistling that stupid song, "Straighten Up and Fly Right." Dad's feet took 2 steps from the sink to the toilet. Byron said, "Aw, man." I heard a kuchika sound, and the floor underneath their feet started being covered with stiff, reddish, Mexican-style hair. Dad kept whistling and cutting. "Kuchika. Aw, man. Hold your head still. I'd hate to take one of these ears off by mistake." Dad went on whistling. "Aw, man." "Kenneth, what are you doing?" Mama called me from downstairs. I ran from the door and got halfway down the steps before I said, "Nothing, Mama." "Come down here and do nothing." "Yes, Mama." "What's your father doing?" "He's whistling 'Straighten Up and Fly Right' and cutting all Byron's hair off." Mama laughed. Joey sat next to her, still looking worried. Three of us sat on the couch for about half an hour before we heard Bi scream as loud as he could. Dad hollered down to us, "Just a little aftershave." We heard the bathroom door open. Dad came down the steps first. "Mrs. Watson," he said, "I'd like to introduce you to your long-lost son from Siam, His Royal Highness, Ewell Watson." Byron stepped into the living room with a real mean scowl on his face. Not only had Dad cut all Byron's hair off, he'd also shaved his head. By's head was so shiny, it looked like it was wet. "And, Mrs. Watson," Dad said, "you can't possibly deny this is your child. You can tell this boy has got a ton of sans blood in him. Look at those ears." Poor Byron. If he'd have known how far his ears stuck out to the side, I bet he never would have gotten that butter. Remember, that's the name of the process he had done to his hair, the butter. Mama put her hand over her mouth and said, "Lord, don't blame that on my side of the family. Someone switched this child at the hospital." Joey laughed because she was relieved Byron hadn't been executed. Mama and Dad laughed at Byron's ears, but none of them laughed as hard as me. "Go get the broom and dustpan and sweep that garbage in the bathroom up. Then go stay in your room. This is it, Bi. You're old enough now and you've been told enough. This time something's gonna be done. Now beat it." Dad's forehead was all wrinkled when he said this. They sent me and Joey outside so they could have one of those adults-only talks. When me and Joey drifted back into the house after what seemed enough time for them to talk, Dad was on the telephone. He was holding the receiver away from his ear and making a funny face. I could hear someone yelling from the phone. Dad whispered to Mama, "Why does she think she's got to yell into the phone for a long-distance call?" You guys probably don't know this, but when cell phones were not a thing and you were just calling one landline to another, you got charged extra for calling long distance because of how much distance was between the two people talking. And so he's making a joke that the person he's talking to thinks that you have to yell further because it's a long distance call. To be heard properly, you need to yell to make your voice carry. That's the joke. Jokes are never funny when you have to explain them, but you guys probably wouldn't get that if I didn't. Anyways, Mama slapped his arm and whispered back, "You leave my mama alone." They were talking to Grandma Sands, all the way in Alabama. Me and Joey crowded up next to them on the couch and heard Grandma Sands yell, "This is costing y'all a fortune, Daniel. Let me talk to my baby again." Dad handed the phone back to Mama, then dug his finger around in his ear like he was going deaf. Mama gave Dad a dirty look and said, "Okay, Mama. We'll be getting back with you. We love you. Bye-bye." She said this stuff Southern style. And that was it. We thought that was the end of Byron's latest adventure until a week later when Dad brought home the TTAB 700, the brown bomber. And we will find out what that is tomorrow when we pick up with Chapter 8. We're going to go ahead and stop right there for the day. Hope you guys enjoyed the conclusion of Chapter 7. Have yourselves a great day. Remember to complete your exit ticket, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.